的投报给你们所有听兴趣的。
Welcome, everyone. I have Tracy Hawkins here, and she's going to speak to us on personal safety, and then she will obviously let you ask questions at the end, and hopefully your questions will be answered.
Okay, again, I am Tracy Hawkins. Can everybody hear me okay? Good. Okay. I am Tracy Hawkins, and I own a business called Safety and Security Source, and I specialize in safety and security products. I started out as a real estate agent, so I understood the safety implications of going into complete strangers' houses, and now I do real estate agent training, and someone said, hey, what about home health care workers? They have the same issues. They're going into complete strangers' houses, and they're typically doing it alone. So as in response to that, I developed a new safety program to give tips on home health safety workers and to give you some tools to do your jobs a little more safely. And I just got this one yesterday, so I'm a little disoriented. So I feel I'm half done, then you'll understand why. And I'm a natural fast talker, and I typically have a very short period of time to do my presentation. So if I'm talking too fast, somebody just slow me down, please. Probably the most important thing I'm going to say, and if you hear nothing else, please hear this, and that is to trust your instincts. Listen to your bodies. And so often, in the interest of being polite, we ignore our bodies. We have a built-in survival mechanism, and it's hardly ever wrong. So if you get that funny feeling in the pit of your stomach, if the hairs are standing up on the back of your neck, your body's telling you something, and you need to listen to it. I work with a crisis counselor, and she talks about being the last person to leave her office one day. And she says she goes around to the elevator, and the door opens, and there's a man inside. And she knew something just didn't feel right. So she said, oops, I forgot something. I'm going to my desk. Go ahead and go. I'll get it later. I'll catch the next elevator. And so she stood there and waited. That was basically an excuse. She stood there and waited. When the elevator door opened again, he was still there. So at that point, she said, look, I'm not riding with you. I'm not riding the elevator until it comes back empty, so you may as well go ahead and go. So at that point, politeness was out the window. She did what she needed to do in order to be safe. So she stood there and she waited till the elevator came back, and at that point, it was empty. So I'm telling you that to tell you sometimes you can't be polite. A lot of times you don't want to embarrass yourself. Safety comes first. Don't worry about being polite. Any crime prevention officer, any police officer will tell you that being aware of your surroundings is probably the best tool you can have. You don't need pepper spray, you don't need any weapons or anything. If you are aware of your surroundings, what goes on around you, you can protect yourself. And I've heard a lot of stories, a lot of people have said after the situation this summer with Kelsey Smith, when we saw the video of her in the parking lot, a lot of people said if she was just paying attention, he wouldn't have had the opportunity to sneak up on her. We don't know all of the details, but when you first glance at it, it's like he was right there on top of her. So a lot of people say pay attention to what goes on around you. That way you don't give people an opportunity to sneak up on you. So be aware of your surroundings. And ladies, we're probably the worst when it comes to this at all. And that's making eye contact. Making eye contact means, hey, I'm looking at you, I can identify you, and I'm paying attention. What do we do when we're walking by someone in the hall, ladies? What's the first thing we do? We look down. We look down, we turn our eyes, turn our head away, and we look down. And what that says is, hey, do what you have to do. I can't identify you. You can sneak up on me, you can do whatever. If you're looking at someone, you make direct eye contact, you're paying attention, and they know that. The easier target is one who's not paying attention. You need to make eye contact with them. I heard a story of a lady she was walking in a parking lot, and someone approached her, and she was uncomfortable. But she knew something was wrong. The guy was coming toward her. She knew something was going on. She was wrong. Something was wrong, but she was by herself. What she did is she looked over his shoulder and she waved. She gave the impression that there's someone behind you that I know. I'm waving. I'm paying attention. There's someone who can identify you. The guy noticed it. He looked startled, but he kept walking. He didn't even turn around to see if there really was anyone back there. Just the possibility that there was a potential witness was enough to make him think twice. And then I've heard the rape crisis counselor gave another tip. Especially this time of year, you're doing a lot of shopping, and whether it's walking out of a mall, whether it's walking out of your office building, wherever it is, let's say you're walking out by yourself. Someone's in the parking lot, you feel uncomfortable. You're by yourself, but you need to give the appearance of a potential witness. So you need to do what it takes. So walking outside, she told the story, I guess these are true stories, I'm getting them from other people. She talks about walking outside and a lady seeing someone in the parking lot, I think it was a couple, and she felt uncomfortable. She knew something was wrong. She was by herself. What she did is she turned around in the office building. She turned around and waved like, I'm okay, I'm going to my car. She gave the impression again that she was not alone. So you need to do whatever it takes to increase witness potential. Probably the most clever story I heard involved an older lady. She was sitting at a bus stop by herself, completely defenseless. Sitting at a bus stop, and then she sees a young guy approaching. This is not to say that all guys are criminals, because criminals come in both genders. She sees a guy approach, and she knows she's in trouble. Something is wrong. She's completely defenseless, just sitting there, just defenseless. So he gets close, he gets closer and closer. She looks at him and she says, "Don't I know your mother?" As simple as it was brilliant. He couldn't take the chance. He was caught off guard. He couldn't take the chance that this is someone who knew his mom, someone who could possibly identify him. He kept going. So that simple comment, that witness, that invisible witness basically saved her life, or saved her from any kind of injury. Now, I don't know how it is, and a lot of places are different, and I've done a lot of different home health care places. Where you are, do you have to let somebody know where you are at all times, or do you pretty much set your own schedule and come and go as you please?
Set it on schedule.
You set your schedule, and that's pretty similar to real estate agents, and the problem with that is somebody needs to know where you are at all times. Let's say you have a client from 1 to 2, and you don't tell anyone because you don't have to. You don't have to check in. This is your schedule. You come and go as you please. So your client's from 1 to 2. Let's say it's 2:30, 2:45. You're not back in the office. You're not at home. It's 3 o'clock, 3:15. Does anybody know you're missing? Does anyone know? No one has a clue. And let's say someone finally realizes that you're missing. Does anybody know where to even start looking for you? Absolutely not. There's no paper trail, there's nothing. Now, a lot of offices, your office may not be set up for it, and a lot of offices aren't, where you tell the receptionist or someone, check in and out with someone, let them know where you are, when you're coming and going. If it's not set up that way, that's fine. You can talk to a coworker, you can tell a spouse, you can tell a friend, a sibling, another adult. Somebody needs to know where you are at all times. You need to let them know, I'm going to be at the Smith house, here's the address, and I'm going to be there from this time to this time. If I'm not back in the office at a certain time, you're to call me. If I don't answer, you can send help, you can come by. Whatever the situation is, somebody needs to know where you are. That way, if they have to call for help, they can at least they have a list of where you're going to be, your different clients. They can hand that to law enforcement officials, and they can at least have a starting point to start looking for you and to find out where you are, and to be able to identify you. Now, the people that you work with, your clients, do you get clients that are referred, or can anyone call and just say, hey, I need someone to come? So is there some screening process involved?
Yes.
So there is. So
There
it's
is.
not like Johnny calling and saying, come send someone over.
No.
Okay, so you have that level of protection there. So there's a screening process in place. And another thing that's important, and I tell this to real estate agents, but it goes for you too. You need to preview when you're previewing and going around, finding the address, you need to know your way in and out of a neighborhood. So you need to preview in advance, go find the house, know exactly where the house is, and that way when it's time to go, you're going to know whether or not this house is the house where all the teenagers congregate, where they all hang out, or is this the neighborhood hangout? Is this a house where there's no parking? That way, and then you need to know your way in and out of the neighborhood, and you need to know in case of an emergency. That way, before you go, you can call and say to your client, there's no lighting up front, can you turn your front porch light on? Or I didn't notice any parking, can you make sure there's a parking space when I get there? Can someone look out for me? Or you even have the right to say, I notice a lot of people hanging out, and I'm not comfortable when there's a large group of people, so may I ask you to have your guests leave until I'm finished? And I've had a lot of stories, a lot of people talk about being in the house where there are too many people and they're uncomfortable. They can't concentrate. It doesn't have to be just a group of teenagers where there are just too many people where they can't concentrate. So you need to know that you have a right to ask them to leave and to have them clear out until you're done doing your work. That way you can focus. And along the same lines, dogs. I understand that a lot of people are concerned about dogs. And I've heard stories about people with the dogs barking and their little teeth bared, and they're saying, oh, he won't bite, she won't hurt you. You have to know that you have a right to ask that the dog be put away until you're done. And you also need to know that you're within your rights to protect yourself. That means if you have pepper spray or whatever and a dog is going to bother you, you have a right to spray the dog with pepper spray. If someone's bothering you, you have a right to do what it takes to defend yourself. And that's important. I know a lot of people hesitate because they don't want to jeopardize their job, but you have to know that you have a right. And another thing is, when you enter a house, you need to have an escape route planned. So that means when you go in, if the door that you came in is the door that you're going to leave in case of an emergency, you need to make sure that door is not blocked. So that means you don't walk in and everybody all of a sudden congregates and hangs around the door and that's where everyone's sitting. You need to make sure that you feel comfortable that if you have to get out of there in a hurry, that the door is going to be, that the escape route's going to be open and available. And once again, you have a right to ask them to please make sure there's no one blocking the escape route. You also need to have a safety plan. And you should have a tape running in the back of your mind. That's not just when you're working, that's when you're shopping, anytime when you walk out in the parking lot here. What if? What if I walk outside and there's someone in the parking lot next to my car, what will I do? What if I walk outside in the mall and there's a group of people hanging around the door and I don't feel comfortable, what will I do? You need to always have a safety plan in place. What am I going to do? And so often we're defenseless, we have nothing. If you have a safety product, you need to make sure it's in hand so your what if can be, I can use it actually to defend myself as opposed to just being completely defenseless. So you need to always make sure you have a safety plan in hand or running in the back of your mind. Now, this is one that I thought was a very odd question, but I find that it must be normal. How many times have any of you been asked to remove your shoes when you walk into a house? Ever? Okay, do you guys know why? Why are your clients asking you to remove your shoes? I'm sorry?
We assume cleanliness.
Cleanliness and culture.
Culture.
Exactly, and I've understood that there's both, and that's something I never even thought about. But imagine if you're walking around someone's house barefoot, if there are needles or and nails, anything, and you step on it, that's a safety issue for you. Imagine being in a property, a house, and someone says something and you feel uncomfortable and you need to get out in a hurry. You're not going to be able to run out without your shoes on. So it's imperative that you have your shoes on. So you have a couple of options. One are those little disposable booties, and I understand some companies provide those, you can get your own. You can simply cover your shoes when you go into a house, or if it's a regular client, you can have a little pair of shoes that you leave in the house, a little pair of flip-flops or little clogs or slippers, something that's always there in the house. So that way you don't ever have to worry about being barefoot. So that way you protect yourself personally as well as safety-wise. Now, I don't have to tell you to dress professionally, but I have to tell you to dress safely. Do most of you wear uniforms when you're visiting clients? Okay, and a lot of people do, and I know there's some companies, surprisingly, where they don't. If you're wearing uniforms, then you're pretty much safe. If you're not, dressing safely means don't use this opportunity to wear your fanciest jewelry. And I know some people just automatically have a lot of jewelry on, and this is something I run into a lot with real estate agents. They wear their fanciest jewelry. I guess they're trying to impress home health workers. Some people just automatically have really, really nice jewelry. You need to leave it at home or save it for special occasions. Crime is all about opportunity. So if you show up and you have a lot of diamonds sparkling, it's just a matter of temptation and someone there is criminal-minded, you're too easy of a target. Ladies, what do you typically do with your purses when you show up at a client's house? You put them in your trunk? Where do you do that? Do you pull up in front of the house and open the trunk and put it inside, or where do you put it in your trunk?
First of the day.
Excuse me?
When you start out in the morning.
Typically, it's in the trunk already. If you wait till you get to the property and you open the trunk and you put your purse in, you're just simply advertising to everyone. Anyone in the neighborhood who happens to be looking out of the window, they're looking at you, put your purse in the trunk, they're watching you go in the house, and all they have to do is pop the trunk and get your purse out and go on about their business. That goes for anything of value. You don't need to take it inside unless you're actively using it with your client. That means PDAs, that means laptops, that means briefcases, and of course purses. If you don't need it, leave it behind. And I don't think I have to tell you about high heel shoes, do I? We have to talk about high heel shoes? Okay. Now, I know some places where you don't wear uniforms. I've heard a lot of people say that they are tempted to wear high heel shoes at times. High heel shoes pretty to look at, but they're hard to run in. So if that's even an issue, definitely leave your high heel shoes behind. How many people here carry cell phones? Probably everybody.
Okay.
How many people realize that cell phones are actual safety tools? Okay, any safety tool has to be accessible. How many people have their cell phones where they can get to them in case of an emergency? And most people don't. Your cell phone should be on a belt clip. It should be on a clip on the outside of your purse. It should be in your hand somewhere where you can get to it in a hurry. If it's at the bottom of your purse and you have to dig for it, not going to do a lot of good if you have to call 911 in case of an emergency. So you need to make sure you have 911 pre-programmed on your phone. And an even better idea came from a real estate agent. He says that when you're in the property, grab the homeowner's cardless phone in case you have to call for an emergency reason. Can anybody tell me why that was a brilliant idea?
Address.
Yeah, address, exactly. Imagine you're 3 or 4 clients in a day. You're in your 3rd or 4th client's house. In that house, someone says something that makes you so completely uncomfortable, and you know this is a 911 moment. if you have to, what are the odds that you're going to remember the address of the house that you're in right then and there? Slim to none. If you have the homeowner's cordless phone handy, all you have to do is dial 911. Even if you don't say a word, you know help's on the way. The address is going to pop up on the dispatch operator screen. If you don't answer when they call back, they're going to send a car. So help is on the way. So definitely, if you can find, and you can use make up an excuse if necessary. My cell phone battery's dead. Can I use your